Following on from UFC 294, the main talking points, as far as I can see, are something of a backlash against Khamzat Chimaev, superlatives for Islam Makhachev, and questions about whether Alexander Volkanovski and Kamaru Usman have much of a future in the sport. Secondary is controversy about some of the officiating in Abu Dhabi, which I'm not going to get into here. So starting off with the performance of Khamzat Chimaev, which seems to be the most polarizing aspect of the fight card. I'm going to start off with what I thought he did well. The most obvious thing is he was able to take down Usman, who had mostly dominated the wrestling exchanges in his previous fights. More than that though, it was particularly impressive that he was able to finish takedowns from difficult positions. Furthermore, if you look at the preview video Henry Cejudo posted on his channel, apparently the one thing Usman had said to Cejudo he was looking to avoid was having his back taken, yet Chimaev did that in the first 60 seconds. I would also say that to me, Chimaev looked more methodical, which kind of leads into a debate about cardio. I have seen some people arguing that Chimaev only gets tired because he's the aggressor and pushes a pace. I think that argument has some merit, but it seems to get overstated by Chimaev fans. If you look at some of the things Chimaev did in the fight, he wrestled offensively and finished takedowns against strong resistance from Usman, which is probably the hardest thing to do cardio-wise in the sport. Equally though, he made Usman carry his weight from the back, which you would think would majorly even things out cardio-wise. I'm just going to focus for a second on the idea that Chimaev, squeezing his knees together using his inner thigh muscles, was somehow more tiring than Usman standing up and defending. If you go back to an early season of The Ultimate Fighter, there was a coach's challenge where Joe Stevenson was asked to rotate around a teammate using these same inner thigh muscles, and he was able to do it for 1 hour and 40 minutes. Looking for more direct examples, if you look at Aljamain Sterling's 2 fights with Peter Yan, it was really when he took the back of Yan in the second fight where he evened things out in terms of cardio. There is some talk that Chimaev broke his hand. That may have affected him tactically, but I think it's hard to believe that explains why he was looking so weary by the 3rd round. Going forward for Chimaev, I still think he's a major threat to both the titles at welterweight and middleweight. I think Chimaev will have a very easy time taking Sean Strickland down. From there he will test the ground game and probably the willpower of Strickland. Leon Edwards might actually be able to defend some of Chimaev's takedowns and also get back up. He's a low output fighter though, so he might give Chimaev opportunities to take a breather. To look at his frame in the fight, I don't think it's impossible for Chimaev to make welterweight. In terms of another potential future opponent for Chimaev, I don't think the rivalry with Usman is necessarily over. A minority of people scored the fight for Usman, and a significant percentage scored it a draw. Personally, I think a draw wouldn't have been a bad result. To an extent, I think some MMA fans have become brainwashed by UFC scoring. Officially, the unified rules were updated around 3 years ago to reflect that damage is the most important scoring criteria. The final thing I'm going to say about Chimaev, which I think are neutral observations, are that he seemed to be expanding his striking style by using preemptive head movement and straight kicks. I say these are neutral observations because neither of these 2 movements were effective in the fight. Going forward, I think these could become assets, and they may work better for him, having now had the opportunity to try these moves out in a real fight and going back to the gym to work on them some more. That said, there are potential downsides to these techniques. I think everyone can remember that Usman's welterweight title run was ended after he slipped a left-hand feint into Leon Edwards' shin. Looking at Islam Makhachev, I think with John Jones being injured, it's now guaranteed he's now going to be ranked as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Personally, I would have given him that ranking even if John Jones was healthy. In terms of potential future matchups, I think Justin Gaethje could potentially beat him. Like many, I had written Gaethje off after the loss to Oliveira. That said, I now think he's bounced back. Even though both have recent head kick knockouts, I think Gaethje has a more well-rounded Muay Thai. I think it also helps that he has been through the training camp for Khabib in the past, focusing on wrestling defense. Other potential matchups for Makhachev are against Colby Covington and Leon Edwards. I think the Covington matchup is the best clash of styles for Makhachev. You could say that in terms of standing grappling, Makhachev has freestyle defense and judo offense. I suspect with Colby being a shooter and taking regular shots, it's exactly the kind of scenario where Makhachev would look good.
Islam had this confidence and belief about himself that you just weren't going to take him down. It didn't matter who was wrestling with him. He had this belief that you couldn't take him down. Islam also scores a lot defensively. It's so hard to take him down when you get to the single. Defensively, he's as hard as anyone to take down.
Leon Edwards seems like he would be a tough matchup for Makhachev. At first glance, you would think there's a great potential for Edwards to outpoint Makhachev on the outside the way he did against Kamaru Usman in the third fight. That said, the way Makhachev's hands looked improved in the first fight against Volkanovski and against Charles Oliveira, if Makhachev can seize the day and take the fight to Edwards, it would be interesting. An aspect of the matchup that would be particularly interesting would be the clinch exchanges. Edwards has historically got a lot of work done in the clinch, but with Makhachev's throwing skills, I'm not certain who would hold an advantage. That said, if these two fighters fought in their usual conservative manner, there probably wouldn't be many clinches. On a closing note, let me know if there's anyone who you think can beat Makhachev. Gamrot is a potential opponent, though I think Makhachev drowns shooters. Fiziev and Jalen Turner are also potential opponents.